Arpita, can you hear me, or is it still an issue for you? Okay, so looks like it's an issue on your side, Arpita, because other people can hear. Maybe you can rejoin the meeting or check the audio settings, what device it's going to and so on. Okay, cool. Okay, continuing with that. All right, so load testing pretty much means that if there are a lot of people coming to your website and they're trying to access it, is it going to survive? In the sense, there might be a million people hitting the ebay.com website. Okay, does the server can handle that load? If you're a single person, it will work fine. That is what the functional testing means. The load testing means that this product can handle the load of whatever the expectation is. Okay, so the product person or the business might say, hey, I can expect that maybe 10,000 people are going to access our website at any point in time, at any second. Okay, so your job is to make sure that this product can handle 10,000 requests at any point in time. Okay, there's another thing which is performance testing. Okay, now your website can handle the load. That means it's not crashing, it's working as expected, but it might be too slow. In the sense, you try to add something to a product or to a shopping cart, it might take 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or maybe 30 seconds. It's just spinning there. Okay, that may give a bad impression to the customer. He might be pissed off, or he may just close the website. He may not even buy it from your website because he doesn't want to sit there waiting. Okay, so that is performance. In the sense, how long does it take for the website or the product to respond? So the business person can come in and say, hey, I want every page to load within 1 second, 2 seconds. So that is your requirement. That means you want to make sure that even though there are 10,000 people coming in and accessing your website, it has to load within that 1 or 2 seconds. It cannot go more than that. That is what the performance testing is. The load testing is the 10,000 people, it should not crash. It should still work as expected. Okay, that is what the load testing means. Okay, now there's a black box testing. Okay, black box testing is a little, okay, there's a black box and white box. Okay, in a black box testing, as the name says, you don't know anything about the code. Okay, so they may be using JavaScript behind the scenes. They may be using whatever the technology they want to use for the front end, for the web browser, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, your job is to test this functionality. In the sense, you are clicking on it, you are making sure it's working as expected. All that. That means you are given a black box. That means you are given a box. You are testing it from outside. Outside in the sense, let's say you have a car. A car has a bunch of buttons. You're pressing the buttons. You're making sure if you turn on the AC is turned on. If you turn on the lights are turned on. So you are testing without looking at the engine. Okay. Now the white box testing is you're going to look at the code. Okay. You're going to look at what the developers have used. Let's say they are using JavaScript. You're going to try to break the JavaScript in the sense, maybe there are certain things that JavaScript doesn't handle properly, or maybe they're using some older version of JavaScript. So you are trying to look at the engine of the car and trying to see how you can break that. In the sense, is there anything that can actually from a user's point of view can do that can change the behavior? That means, let's say you go to a shopping cart. Okay, so if I go to the, okay, so I click on this, I say add to cart. Now I'm at the shopping cart. Okay, so no thanks. Okay, so now I'm in the shopping cart here. There is a promo code or somewhere, right? So if I go to checkout, okay, so there's something called a coupon code here. Okay, so if I put some coupon code here, okay, does it take it? In the sense, what is the validation that is happening? Okay. Now at the same time, so yeah, in this case, it doesn't have anything here, but let me go back here. So in some cases, there might be some websites that might say, hey, do you want to donate some money to some charity? You might put, hey, I want to donate $5. Okay. And then the shopping cart or your total has to increment by $5. Okay. But what if the user puts -5 or -$10? Does the total decrease by 5 or 10? So your job is to look at the code, how the code is implemented, and then try to break that. Okay. So that is what the white box testing is. Okay. So black box, you don't care how they have written the code. You don't care what the technology is. You don't care anything. You just, from the user's point of view, you're pressing a bunch of buttons. You're making sure it's okay, working as expected. The white box, you have to look at the code. Maybe they have a for loop. Maybe they have some boundary conditions. So you look at the code, try to understand how they have implemented, and then you try to break what they have done. Okay, so that is what white box testing is. Okay. Okay. Any questions so far? Oh, okay, cool. All right. Now, these are all, I mean, these are all, I would say, at a high level. Okay. Now we're going to look at going to low level details of how to do each of those. Okay. So manual, there is nothing much I can teach you. I mean, even a 10 or 15-year-old kid can do manual testing. Okay. Um, and the manual testing pays much lower. And most of the companies don't want manual testers because, as I told you, once you know the product, if you leave the company is at a big loss because now they have to hire someone else, they have to teach them and all that. Okay. So most of the times the companies look for automation. Okay. That means they want to write a test case that will open up a web page, and it can click on those buttons, it can add, it can do certain things and all that. Okay. So that is where automation comes into picture. And we're going to use Python right now to do some of the testing. Okay. Since I see some new people here, um, I want you guys to install PyCharm Community Edition if you don't already have. If you have this PyCharm browser, sorry, editor, that's fine. We can go ahead. But if you don't have this, yeah, I would recommend you guys download. I'm going to send you the link also. Yeah, go to that website, download, and install that. Along with that, if you don't have Python 3, I would also recommend you download this Python 3. You can download the latest Python, which is 3.9, I guess. Yeah, 3.9. Okay. I'm sure most of you have this Python and PyCharm. If you guys don't have it, maybe you can message me, and I'm gonna wait for a few minutes. But if everybody has, I'm gonna move on to the actual coding part. Cool. Okay. If anybody doesn't have, just message me, or you can post on the chat. But if I don't see any message saying I don't have, then I'm gonna continue. I'm not gonna wait. Okay. So I just sent two links. Download the PyCharm Community Edition. This professional is a paid version. That means you have to pay for it. It has some extra features, but for our use case, community is more than enough. They say it's a free trial, but after 30 days, it will stop working. Okay, I would recommend use the community edition. If you're on a Mac OS, it's a different link. You need to click on this and download that. And it's a pretty heavy software. It will take at least like 5 minutes or so for the whole installation. Okay, in the meanwhile, I can probably talk about something else. Okay, so we saw this product, which is eBay.com, which is a commercial website, e-commerce website, and all that. Okay, now there can be something else, which is okay. Let's take this, right. Let's take this Notepad. This is Notepad++. Okay, so this is not a website. This is not running on a browser. Okay, this is a standalone product. It can be, let's say you go to Walmart, you have a point of sale system. Okay, it's called POS or point of sale. Okay, so in a point of sale system, you don't have a browser or anything. I mean, there's a native application. Okay, it's a native application. It's running on the system itself. Okay, so for those kind of stuff, the testing is going to be very different. You cannot use the things that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about how to open up a web page, how to get the web page, how to look at the contents of a web page, and so on. Okay, so the other type of testing, which is testing native applications, is going to be different. So every tool, okay, so there is a language or a tool called Qt and QML, which is what most of these native applications use. Okay, for those also there are different tools to test. Probably we'll cover it later. But yeah, so native applications, the testing is going to be different. I'm going to talk. I'm going to show you how to test a browser or a web page. Okay, so even in a web page, there are different things. So right now, I opened this web page in a browser called Brave. Okay, so this is a different browser. So you have also Chrome. There's a Chrome browser. Okay, you have Internet Explorer. You have Firefox. You have different type of browsers. Okay, and different browsers have different functionality. In the sense, some web pages will work on some browsers properly. Some web pages don't work on other browsers. It will work differently. Okay, so your job as a tester is to make sure that it's working on all the browsers, on all the platforms as expected. The same browser, Chrome, may behave differently on Windows versus Linux or Mac. Okay, and at the same time, a Chrome might have different versions. Okay, so right now, if I open up a Chrome and I go to okay, so here I have 89.0 and so on. So this is a Chrome version. Within the Chrome itself, I might have a previous version, I might have a latest version. Somebody may have never upgraded their Chrome, so maybe they are using 40, version 40, who knows. So your job is to make sure that it is working on different browsers, different versions of the same browser, within that browser, within the same version, different platforms, Windows, Mac, Linux, or so on. Okay, so there are so many permutations and combinations that you have to test to make sure it's working as expected. Okay, so these are all the things that a QA QE has to take care of. Okay, All right, so I'm gonna go to PyCharm here. So once you have the PyCharm installed, I would say open up a new and say Python file. I'm gonna say test. Oh, by the way, in the previous session, I gave a small assignment, download a file, use Python to compute the average and so on. I wanted you guys to submit that code. I received only one submission. So I want everyone to solve that and send me the code. It's just for your own benefit. And I know that, or I can see the code and I can tell you what might be wrong or what can be improved and all that. Okay. So try to solve it and send me the code whenever I give you an assignment or something to work upon. Okay. Okay. So going to this tutorial. Okay. So I'm assuming that the newcomers already know the Python basics. Actually, you know what? Let me quickly go through that a few things in Python. So Python has a basic data types, which is like a string type. Okay. Okay. And then okay, so this is a string type. That means you can see there are double quotes around that string, and this is a number type or an integer type, and this is just a number. Okay. Okay. So this is a decimal type. So you can see that in Python, I don't have to say what is the type of this variable. Okay. I can just say price equal to 34.5. Internally, Python knows that this is a decimal type. This is an integer type. Okay. So this is a string type. So these are some of the basic data types. Okay. You can also have a list of types. Okay. So I can have list of people. Okay. So you put a square bracket, opening square bracket, closing square bracket, and then you have a bunch of strings in between. So this is a name of the list, and this is the list content itself. Okay. And then you can do something like print. Print is pretty much going to print to the standard output. Okay. So I can say list of people. So this is another good thing of PyCharm, that when I do that, it's going to show me, it's going to try to help me with the coding. It's going to show, this is called autocomplete. Autocomplete means it's going to help me. I don't have to type the whole thing. Okay, it's gonna do it for me. Okay, that's one good thing with PyCharm. I don't have to remember all the functions, all the name of the variables and all that. Okay. Anyways, okay. All right. So once okay, I have the print statement here. I'm going to print this. So to run from PyCharm, you have to go to run option and press on this run. Okay, then you can select this file name, which is testtutorial.py. So at the bottom, you can see that it ran successfully and it actually printing those values. Okay, Sam, Rich, and Bob, which is a list of values. Okay, or the list of people here. So the reason why I'm showing you this is these are the basic data types, and this is how you're gonna run from PyCharm. Okay. Okay. So if you have, yeah, if you have some basic understanding of the data types, this is what I covered in the previous sessions. So I'm in a dilemma. Should I cover it again or should I skip this part? How many of you don't know what a for loop is, if you don't know this, what a for loop is, I'm going to talk about a few more things about Python before going into testing with Python. So if you guys don't know what a for loop is, um, yeah, you can send a chat message. You can even reply privately so nobody knows. And then I can talk about the basics before going into the testing part with Python. Okay, fine. So I'm gonna just briefly cover those things. Okay. So Python has these concepts, or every language has something to loop over. Okay. So if I want to print something from 1 to 10, okay, I can say I equal to 1. I'm going to start from 1, and I can say I less than 10 or I less than equal to. Okay. And I'm going to say print I. Okay. Sorry. And by the way, if I put a hash symbol at the beginning of the line or wherever it is, that means it's comment. Comment means that part is not going to be executed. That's going to be skipped. Okay. So when I run the code, this part will not be executed. Okay. So here I have something called I. I is a kind of like an index. Okay. Or I can name it IDX. Okay. So index, I start with 1, and then I have a while loop. I'm saying that while I less than or equal to 10, that means, or index less than or equal to 10, that means that if this condition is true, while this condition is true, keep looping, keep executing this part. Okay. So if I run this code, okay, if I run this code, what's going to happen is the first time index equal to 1, it's going to go here and it's going to say while index less than 10. So this 1 is going to replace here. It's going to put the value of index is 1, so it's going to put 1 there. 1 is less than or equal to 10. That means it's true. True means it's correct. Okay. So it's going to go inside the loop and it's going to say print. Print means it's going to print that, and then it's going to increment. I'm going to say index equal to index plus 1. So there are two things: IDX on the left hand side and IDX on the right hand side. The right hand side is going to read, on the left hand side is going to update. Okay, so it's going to replace IDX with 1. It's going to add 1 and 1. It's going to be 2. Sorry, it's going to put the value of 2 in IDX variable. Okay, so it's going to go here. It's going to say, hey, is it still correct? 2 less than or equal to 10. Yes, that's correct. Okay. Yes, that is true. So it's going to print 2, and it's going to keep looping and all that. So it's going to replace here 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. So it's going to put index equal to 3. So it's going to put the value of 3 in the index. And it's going to go here and going to say while 3 less than or equal to 10 and all that. So it's going to keep looping there. Okay. Until this index, until this condition fails. Okay. Since I'm incrementing 1 at a time, after 10 times, it's going to fail because this index will be 11 and 11 is not less than 10. So it will come out of that loop. Okay. Okay. So if I run this code, it's going to print from 1 to 10. And then in the very end, it's going to print out of the loop. Okay. So at the bottom, you can see that It started with 1, it printed 2, 3, 4, all the way to 10, and then it printed out of the loop. Okay. So what's happening here is pretty much that this statement, while statement, will execute until that condition is false. Once the condition is false, it will come out of the loop. Okay. So that is what a while loop means. Okay. There's another loop which is called for loop. Okay. For, if you know the elements, then you're gonna use the for loop. Okay. So I have here a list of people, right? Okay. So I have a list of people here, all these people. I want to print each person. Okay. So I can say for person in list of people, print person. Okay. So here you can see there's a difference between while loop and a for loop. A for loop, I'm saying for each person in that list. Okay. That means if you know the elements, if you know the contents, then you can use a for loop. For loop is better if you have these kind of situations, especially in Python. Java, C++, .NET, C# is different. But in Python, a for loop is only for looping over a bunch of elements, a range of elements, and all that. Okay. So you're saying that for this person in this list of people, print each person. Okay. So if I run this, it's going to print Sam, Rich, and Bob. Okay. Okay. You can see here at the bottom, it prints those things. Okay. Now the print method itself, every time it prints, it's going to print a new line. Okay. So once it prints this person, it's automatically going to go to the next line the next time. That means it's putting a new line at the end of the statement. If you don't want to do that, you can say end equal to space. I don't want a new line after every statement. I just want to put a space there. So you can say end equal to space. And when I run this, you can see Sam, there's going to be space because I said don't print a new line, but put a space. And then it's going to print the next one, Rich, space. The next time it's going to print Bob, space. Okay. So that is what the print method does. It prints the contents. And if you say end equal to this, it will print that at the very end. Okay. If you don't specify this, it's going to print a new line. Okay. Okay. So you can see that I'm using single quotes here and I'm using double quotes here. In Python, single and double quotes is the same. So I can even use single quotes here. It's the same thing. In .NET, Java, C++, it is different. You use it for characters, strings, and so on. But in Python, single double quotes is the same thing. Okay, same result. Okay, so that is what a for loop is, and that is what a print statement does, and this is what a list, this is what a while loop. These are all a bunch of variables. Okay, a variable is nothing but a data storage where it can store a bunch of contents or some values and all that. Okay, so those are variables. Here index is a variable. List of people is a variable of type list. Okay, there can be another thing which is a dictionary. Dictionary is nothing but a key value pair. Okay, so I'm going to say okay, I can have an employee dictionary and I can have an employee ID as 1 2 and his name is Sam. Okay, let's start with 10 or 1. Okay, okay, that's fine. So Okay, so what we have here, you can see a curly brace. Okay, here I used a square bracket. Now I'm using a curly brace. A curly brace, when Python sees that, that means it's a dictionary. Okay, a dictionary is nothing but a key value pair. That means this employee ID 1 has a value called Sam. That's a key, and this is a dictionary. Okay, employee ID 2 corresponds to Bob. Okay, so it's nothing but a key and a value. Okay, so I can say print employee of 1. Okay, so what is happening here when I put square bracket and a 1, it's going to look up this dictionary. It's going to look up the corresponding key, which is a 1. It's going to get the value Sam, and it's going to print that Sam. Okay, so if I run this code, okay, so run this. Okay, so I mean, don't be scared. In the sense, Python is pretty friendly. Maybe I'm going too fast, but the reason why I'm going too fast is because there are already people who already know all these things, which is why I'm trying to skip it. But if you don't understand, message me, and then maybe I can have another session going through all the basics kind of stuff and so on. Or maybe I can have a session tomorrow, just covering the basic concepts. Okay. Okay. So here we have a print statement, and I'm printing this, and then I put a plus sign. Plus here means that add the value of this to this. Okay, which is pretty much a string concatenation. Okay. So if I run that, you can see that employee name for employee ID 1 is Sam. Okay, so here it printed this, which is a constant, and employee of 1, it printed Sam. You can see that at the bottom. That's because employee, it looks up in the dictionary for the corresponding employee ID 1, and it's going to print that Sam. Okay. Now you can also might think, what's the difference here? I can say list of people of 1. Okay. So here also I'm putting square bracket, and you can say 1, and it's going to print rich. That's because in Python or in other languages, list starts with 0. Okay, so this is 0, that is 0th element. This is first element, and this is second element, and all that. Okay, so if you print this, it's going to print rich, and here it's going to print Sam. But what is the difference? It's still the square bracket and all that, right? So here in a list, everything starts with 0. Okay, in a dictionary, I can use this anything. Okay, I can even say Sam 1. Okay, that means, let me do this actually. Sam, okay, employee ID to name mapping or a dictionary. Okay, I can have another one which is employee name to ID. Okay, okay. So here I have first dictionary, which is yeah, I have the first dictionary which is an ID to name mapping, and the second dictionary which is a name to ID mapping. Okay, that means you have a name which is Sam, and if I want to look up what is the employee ID for that Sam, I'm going to do this. Okay, so that, sorry, I have to say, okay, so when I do this, give me the ID for that name which is Sam. Okay, that means it's going to look up the corresponding value in this dictionary for Sam, and it's going to give me value 1. That's because Sam has a corresponding value of 1. Okay, so if I print this, yeah, sorry. Okay, so here I have an integer and I'm trying to add it to a string. That is not allowed, so I'm going to do this. Okay, so in Python you also can do this. You can put a f in the beginning, which is a formatted string, and inside you can put a curly brace. I guess this is confusing. Curly braces everywhere. Um, yeah, I guess I'll just do this. Okay. Okay. So there are no curly braces here, but pretty much I'm printing employee name to ID, which is a dictionary here, and I'm looking up the corresponding value for that Sam, and I'm printing that. Okay. So can you guys take a guess what it will print? Yep, that's correct. Yeah. So it's going to print 1. That's because you have the corresponding the value for Sam. Sam is the key here, and the value is going to be 1. So it's going to print that. Okay. So going back to this list here, okay, the list of people cannot look up based on a key, based on a key. Okay, so it can look up based on an index. So I can say, give me the first element, give me the second element, give me the third element, but I cannot say what is the corresponding value for this key. Okay, so that can be done only with a dictionary. Okay, so that is a high level difference between what's a dictionary or a map. Some languages call it a map. In Python, we call it a dictionary. Okay. Okay. So it's a map or a dictionary. In a map, you have a key and corresponding value. Okay. Now, Sam cannot have two employee IDs. Sam can have only one employee ID. Okay. A Bob can have only one employee ID. He cannot have the same uh, key but different value. Okay. So if I try to have that Sam and I say 5, okay, guess what it prints here when I say print employee name to ID Sam. Does it print 1 or does it print 5 or does it print both? Or does it even run the program, or will it be an error? Yeah, it won't be an error because Python is very strange language. Unlike compiled languages, which will catch this kind of errors, Python will take it and it will update it. The first time it has a value 1, and when it sees 5, it will update it. It will change that 1 to 5. Okay. So you can see that it printed 5 at the bottom. Okay. So that means that here, when we say employee name to ID, initially it had a value 1, but when it saw 5, it updates it. Okay. But it's not going to print both 1 and 5 or 1 or so on. So this key can have only one value. Okay. That means you cannot have duplicates. You cannot have Sam with 1, Sam with 5, and all that. Okay. So it's a unique key. Okay. The key has to be unique. You cannot have duplicates in there. And then you're going to have a corresponding value. Values can be duplicate. It's okay to have the same value here. Okay, so let's say I have this. Okay, employee name to age. Okay, I have Sam. Let's say his age is 20. Bob, his age is 21, which his age is also 20. Okay, let's say that Mary, her age is, let's say, 20 also. Okay, so this is fine. You can have duplicate values, that's okay, but you cannot have duplicate keys here. Okay, I mean, you can have it, but it's going to update it. It's not going to take the previous value. Okay, but if you have duplicate values, that's okay too. That means I can have the same value 20 for another person. That's okay. That's not an error. That is fine. Okay. So one of the restrictions of a dictionary or a map is that you can have only unique keys, and the keys can have corresponding values. The values, there is no restriction. You can have duplicate values, unique values, it doesn't matter. Okay. 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 So both of them, sorry, I'm also rich here. Okay. So here, both these employees have the same age, which is 20, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong in there. Okay. And the dictionary is going to take that. That means the dictionary is not going to touch anything. There's no updates. There is nothing, because the keys are unique. It's a different person, which is a key. On the left hand side, that's a key. On the right hand side is a corresponding value. Okay. So the key is a unique key, and the key has to be unique. That is what the restriction is. Okay. So this is what a dictionary means. A list is nothing but a collection of elements. The collections can be duplicates. It doesn't matter. I can have the same person, Sam, here. Okay. I can have the same person, Rich, here. Okay. So it doesn't matter. List is nothing but a collection of elements. The elements can be strings, numbers, and Python is so weird in the sense there is no type defined. So I can put even numbers in the same list. It doesn't matter. Okay. So Python can take a mixed list and all that. Okay. Okay. So this is a dictionary. This is a list, and this is a integer or a number type. This is a decimal or a float type. Okay. And this is a integer type. That's a string type. Okay. So in other languages, compiled languages, I have to say int a equal to 20. Okay. So that means I have to tell the language that a is of type integer. But in Python, we don't say that. We just say age equal to 20. Python is going to derive what you're going to assign. So since I assigned 20, which is an integer, internally, it's going to take that age as type integer. You don't have to say what is the type of that age. In other languages, you have to enforce that. You have to say that int my a is going to be of type int. And if you do something like this, a equal to abc, that will throw a compilation warning in other languages, or error in other languages, because you declared that a as an integer. Now you are trying to assign a string. That is going to be error at compile time. Okay. In Python, I can change this to something else. I can say age equal to abc. That's okay. There's no error. There's nothing. What Python is going to do is it's going to change internally. The type is going to be changed. Now it's going to be a string type. It's not going to be an integer type anymore. So this is okay in Python. Okay. So this whole thing that deriving the type is called dynamic typing. Okay. The type of the integer or string or so on, the variable, is going to be derived from what you assign. Okay. So that is dynamic typing. Okay. All the languages like C Sharp, C, C++, Java, etc., they're all static typing. Okay. Static means you have to specify what is the type of the variable, and it's going to enforce that type. that is static typing. Okay, so this is dynamic typing. Okay, so now, okay, I'm going to write a small function, and I'm going to tell you what a function is. Okay, so let's say I want to square a number. Okay, so for the people who attended some of my previous session, this might be a repetition, but just bear with me. In another 10 minutes, I'm going to talk about some new topic. So just bear with me here. Okay, so let's say I want to write a function square, which will take a number and will return the square of that number. Okay, so I can take a number n, and I'm going to do return n times n. Okay, oh, by the way, when you put a star, that means it's a multiplication. Okay, so if I do print square of 5, so that is going to print 5 times 5, which is 25. Okay, square of 6, that's going to print 6 times 6, which is 36. You guys can expect that when I run this code. I'm going to comment all this. Okay, okay, you can see it prints 25 and 36 in the bottom section, which is the output section. Okay, so here I did a couple of things. One is a def. Okay, the def here means a definition. Okay, that means I'm writing a function or a definition of name square. Square means that's the name of the definition, that's the name of the function, and I'm going to put a parenthesis, which is that is parenthesis, and I put n inside that. That means that's an input to that function. Okay, and then you can see something called a return. Return means that is what is going to be returned whenever you call that function. Okay, when you call that function, what am I returning? I'm returning the number times a number. Okay, so when I say square of 5, this 5 is going to be replaced here. Okay, and it's going to return 5 times 5. Okay, and that will be the value, which is 25, and that is going to be returned. So this whole thing, square of 5, will be 25. That's because we are returning 5 times 5. That will be 25. When I say print 25, that is what you're going to see here, 25. Okay, same thing with 6. Okay, okay. Now let's say I have this beautiful function, which is a square, which can square any number. Okay, I want to provide this to my team members. Let's say that they don't know how to write a square function. I have written this beautiful square function and I want to give it to them. Okay, now how do I give it to them? I'm going to store it in a file called, let's say I store it in a file called test tutorial. Okay, I save it, it's saved there. Now they can call this function. So I'm going to remove these statements here. Okay, now they can call this function and they can get some output. Okay, so they can go to another file, which is, I'm going to create a new file. Call square. Okay, so I have a new file called callsquare.py. Okay, so here I'm going to say import test underscore tutorial. Okay, and I can say print square of 5. Okay, so you can see that, sorry. Okay, so here what I'm doing is, okay, so here I have a file called test tutorial. I cannot increase the font over here, but that's the name of the file, test underscore tutorial. And I have another file, which is call underscore square. Okay, so this is a file my teammate is working on, and he doesn't know how to write a square function. So I have provided that function to him in a file, this file, and all he's going to do is going to say import. Import means he's going to get that file over here. Okay, anytime an import, Python sees an import, what it does is it will take all the contents of this file and it will replace it here. Sorry, and it will replace it here. Okay. So when you actually call this, it's gonna find the square function and it's able to print it or call it. Okay. Okay. So this statement import pretty much means that it's gonna get the contents of that file and it's gonna put it here. And when you call that function, it's gonna find that function and it's gonna invoke that function, pretty much the same as what we did before. In the previous here, we are actually calling the square function within the same file. Okay. Now here I have a different file and I'm calling that file and I'm saying, hey, get the code from the other file, and I'm going to call that code. Okay. So that is what the import statement does. Okay. So if I run this code, oh, sorry, I have to run this call underscore square. Okay. So you're going to see that it printed 25. Okay. So what happened here is you have a module. This is called a module. Okay. This is a module and I have a bunch of functionality in the module. Okay. And I'm providing this module for importable for others. Okay. That means another person can come in and say def cube. You can add a bunch of functionality here. Okay. Return n times n times n. So that is what the cube does, right? You multiply 3 times and you return that. Okay. So that is what a cube function does. So you have all the mathematical utilities in this file, and then other developers or other people can just import all the code that you have written there, and then they can call those functions. Okay. Cube of file. So you can see at the bottom, square prints 25, cube prints 125, and all that. Okay. So this is called a library. Okay. A module is a single file, and if I provide a bunch of files together, or even a single file for other people to import, that's called a library. Okay. A library, as you can imagine, it's a bunch of books, right? Here it's a bunch of files or a bunch of code, bunch of functions that other people can use it. Okay, so here you have an import method that is gonna expose all those methods to this file, and then you can call those things. Okay. Now you can see that I said test tutorial dot square. That means it's gonna go to that file or pretty much access the square inside that file, test tutorial. But if you don't want to do this every time, you can also do this short notation, which is from test tutorial import square. Okay. Okay. So, oh sorry, import square comma cube. Okay. So what I'm doing is I don't want to type this the whole thing test tutorial dot square. It's too big. And let's say every time I access, I have to type this whole thing test underscore tutorial dot square, test underscore tutorial dot cube, and all that. That's too much typing for me. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to have a shorthand notation. Shorthand notation means I'm saying from this test tutorial file, import square and cube functions. Okay. So this code here knows, sorry. Okay. This file here knows what is a square and what's a cube. Okay. So when I say print square and a cube, it knows that square is coming from the test tutorial. So it's going to go to that file, get that, and call that function and so on. Okay, so this is a shorthand notation that you don't have to type the whole thing, test underscore tutorial dot square, test underscore tutorial dot cube, and all that. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, cool. So what I'm doing right now is giving you a high-level picture of the technical terms. What's a library? What's a module? What is a function? What's a return value? What are the data types and all that? Okay. So the reason why I want to start at a high level is when you guys go to a company or when you guys get placed, somebody might say, hey, why don't you take my module and use it? Okay. So when they say module, you should know that pretty much he means his the file or his piece of code. Okay. So that's what a module means. Okay. Or they might even say, hey, there's a library that can do that. So you're trying to write a square function. Somebody might say, hey, there's a library that can already do what you're trying to do. Okay. So you don't have to rewrite all that code. You can just import or get it from the file and implement it, okay, or sorry, or call it, invoke. Yeah, this is called invocation or calling the function or invoking the function. Okay, so pretty much they're gonna come to you and say, hey, why don't you use my library and invoke the function or call the functions? Okay, so that is what a module and all that means. Okay, now coming back to the testing. Okay, now let's go to the testing part. There is a module called requests. Okay, Python has something called requests. This is a module that Python provides. Okay, so we're going to use this module, the requests module. Okay, what this is going to help us is it can help in getting, in making any HTTP request. Okay, before we even go there, let's actually say what's a HTTP request and all that. Okay, so this is a browser. Okay, and this browser, and I'm saying www.ebay.com. Okay, so when I hit enter, Chrome here is making a HTTP request to ebay.com, and it's making a get request. Okay, and it's getting a response from eBay, and the response is a HTML page, a CSS page, HTML, CSS, and maybe JavaScript or all that. Okay, but pretty much from the browser point of view, the browser is running on my local machine, and it is making a request, a HTTP request to ebay.com. The ebay.com is responding back with a web page. My browser got the web page, and it's showing up in a nice format. Okay, but what I actually got from ebay.com is this actually. So if I do inspect, okay, so on the right hand side, you can see that this is what I got actually from the ebay.com. Okay, you can see a HTML page here. Let me increase the font. Okay, so you can see there's a HTML page on the right hand side. That is what I actually got from the ebay.com. But the Google Chrome knows how to read that HTML and show me in a nice graphical format. Okay, so there's a heading. You can see it says on the top. Try to see. Okay, you can see that there's a description: buy and sell electronics and all that. Okay, so if I, okay, one second. Yeah, you can see that Twitter title. So here you can see this is the heading which says electronics, cars, and all that, right? And more and all that. So you can see the same thing here on the top. So what Google Chrome is doing is it's reading this page and it's rendering in a nice format, in a user-friendly format. Okay, but what eBay actually returned is this, what you see on the right-hand side, which is this web page. Okay, so it got this JavaScript, HTML, CSS page, and it's showing up as this. Okay, so what happened here is we made a HTTP request. Okay, okay, so this might be more clear. Okay, so I have a client, which is my laptop here. Okay, I have a browser inside that laptop, which is a client. Okay, and there's a server, which is a ebay.com. Okay, so we went to ebay.com with a request, which is HTTP request. In this case, a HTTP GET request, and we got a response, which is a HTTP response. Okay, and I'm going to talk about what are the different request types, what is the response status code, and all that. Okay. Now, internally inside ebay.com, what is happening is when I made a HTTP request, because they have to manage the load in the sense they don't want to have one server, they may have 100 servers or 10 servers. Okay, so it's going there to ebay.com. Internally, they might have one server, two server, or n servers. Okay, out of the n servers, one of them is going to take that request. It's going to send me back a response. Okay, so this is what the load balancing or routing the request happens. Okay, that means we send a request, one of the server is processing it, sending back a response. Okay, that's common in the sense you don't want to rely on one server, because if there are a lot of people that's coming to that same website, you want to divide the load. That's how the companies do. They have multiple machines running. One of them is going to send back the response. Okay. There can also be another use case where you are actually requesting for some data, and there are some servers that are going to do updates. So let's say you're trying to check out. There might be some servers that are dedicated for checkout. Okay, there might be some servers that are dedicated for searching. So here I can go and search for a certain product also. Okay, so there might be some servers that are dedicated. Sorry. Okay, there might be some servers that are dedicated just for searching functionality. There might be some servers that are dedicated just for checkout functionality. So they can also divide the load based on the functionality. Okay. Now let's look at what are the different request types you got. Okay. Okay. So you got a bunch of request types, which is okay. Okay. So you got different request types. You have a GET request. That means you're trying to get something. As the name says, you're not modifying anything. You're just reading and you're trying to get that value. Okay, that means a request for a web page or an object from a server. That's a GET request. Okay, now HTTP also has a PUT method. Okay, the PUT method is pretty much that you already have a resource. You're trying to modify the resource. That is what the PUT method does. Okay, that means let's say here I have a user. Okay, and I try to change my email address, or I try to change my phone number. That's a PUT request. Okay, I'm trying to modify something that's already existing. That's going to be a PUT request. Okay, and there's another method which is POST method. POST means this is the first time I'm requesting something, a resource, or I'm actually requesting for that particular resource. There is a modification. That means, let's say I have a search page here. I have a search field. I put this iPhone, or let's say I put Samsung. okay? And when I hit enter, that's going to make a post request. Post means this is the first time, or this is the resource wasn't existing before, and I'm trying to post certain form data or a field data, okay? So anytime I hit enter, this is going to make a post request, okay? Um, Actually, you know what? Maybe I can show you that there's a post request that is happening. Okay, so there's a get request. Anyways, this is going into too technical. Okay, here you can see that there's a post request. Okay, so um, what is happening here is when I hit enter, it's actually doing a post request. It's going to the ebay.com. It's saying HTTP post. Okay, so that is what the post request is. Okay, there's also delete request. Delete, it's rarely used, but you can also delete a request, or in the sense delete a resource. Let's say you have an account in ebay.com. You say, hey, I don't want my account. I want to delete my account and all that. So that is where the delete request comes in. That means you're going to say, when you hit the delete button, it's going to send a delete request to ebay.com, and eBay has to delete your data. But internally, they may store some audit table, or they may store another table. But from the ebay.com point of view, they're getting a delete request. Okay, so that is what the delete request is. Now there's also head request. There's a head, pretty much means it's like a header information or a heading information. Okay, so let's say you're trying to download a file which is like maybe 10 GB file. Okay, you don't want to get the file. Get is pretty much gets the whole 10 GB file, but you want to just find out how big the file is. That's where the head or a heading information is. So you send a HTTP head request, and ebay.com is going to respond back saying, hey, the file is 10 GB. Maybe it might tell you something else, but that's a header information. Okay, so that's what the HTTP head request is. It's not going to give you the file, or it's not going to give you the entire body. It's just going to give you the header information. Okay, and there are other things, we don't need to go into those. Even some of them I have never used them. So these are the top 5, or the ones that are heavily used. Okay, get, put, post, delete. These are the 4 mostly used. Head, you use it once in a while. Okay. Okay. Now, when I load the page, ebay.com, what's happening here? It's doing a HTTP GET request. Okay. And when I do search, okay, when I search for iPhone and I hit enter, it's doing a post request because it's actually modifying, or in the sense it's getting some field data, form data. So anytime I press something in the form, I hit enter, that's actually modifying the web page. That means it's actually has to post the data, and it has to get that. That's HTTP post. Okay. But yeah, so those are the different HTTP methods you have. Okay. And for every HTTP method, there is a response that comes out. Okay. The response is, okay. The response, as you can see here, the response that comes out is going to have a bunch of information. Okay. It's going to have a heading information. It's going to have a body and all that. Okay. The heading information is going to say, hey, you're success, you're good. I know what you're asking. I'm going to give you this data. Okay. So it's going to give you a status, which is going to say you're a success or a failure and all that. Okay. There are different type of status code that can come back. So you can say, hey, I want to see some information. Okay. eBay.com can say, hey, I'm going to give you that information. You are good to go. That's 200 status code. Okay. So anytime you see, okay, anytime you see 200 status code, that means it's a success. Okay, and all that. Okay, that means you requested for some information, and I'm going to give you that information. Okay, and you have 201. Anything you see starting with 200, that means it's a success. Okay, now let's say that you're at a shopping cart page and you're trying to do something funny, in the sense you're trying to change the price of the product, or you're trying to do something that you're not allowed to do, and all that. So you're gonna get something like a 400 status code. Okay. 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 Fine. Okay. You can see here on the left side. Yeah. The 400 request, or anything that's starting with 400, that means you're doing something the server doesn't want you to do. Okay. So you can see 400 bad request. That means you're requesting for something the server doesn't understand what you're requesting for. Okay. 401 unauthorized. That means you're trying to, um, let's say, check out, but you haven't logged in yet. That's unauthorized. So you might get 401 error and all those kind of stuff. Okay. Or 404 not found. You're trying to open a URL that is no longer existing, or that doesn't exist anymore. You're going to get 404 error. Okay. So these are some of the errors that you might have encountered before. You might try to open a web page. You might see a 404 response status code. That means you're trying to open a web page that no longer exists. So the server is going to say, I don't know what you're asking for. So it's going to say 404 not found. Okay. So anything you see 400, that means the client is doing an incorrect request. Okay. Now there's also another request, which is 500 request. Okay. So let's say you're requesting for something, iPhone, and the server. Okay. So you're trying to request for something, and the server got the request. You are valid. That means you are logged in. You are doing a valid request. The server goes to a database. The server looks up in a database. The server tries to look up the product information. But let's say that something is wrong on the server side. The database is down, or maybe a hard disk crashed, or maybe some exception that happened. That's a server side issue. That means nothing wrong with the client side, but the server is unable to look up. In those kind of cases, you're going to get 500 status code. Okay. Sorry. The 500 status code means that it's something wrong with the server, nothing wrong with the client. The server is going to say, if you see 500, that means internal server error. It's something wrong with the server, nothing wrong with you. 504 gateway timeout. That means um, there's a web server that has to process every request within 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or maybe 30 seconds. The gateway is waiting for the response to come, but the server basically is taking too much time, so it's going to time out. That means it's going to disconnect, and you're going to see a 504 timeout error. Okay. 504 insufficient storage. So something wrong with the server side. They're running out of storage. You're going to get 504, 507 storage error and all those. Okay. So anything you see 500, that means it's a server error. Okay. Now, as a tester, you are a tester. Okay. Now you're testing it. You want to send some request so that the server is going to throw some error. Okay. Anything you see 400, that's good actually. I mean, you're testing something and the server is saying, hey, you are doing something wrong, okay, which is good. But you are requesting for something and the server is throwing an error, that is not good. In the sense, server has to return some data back, but now it's throwing an error, which is not good. That means the web page is going to show an error to the user, which is not good. Okay, so when you test, you want to look for all the status codes. What is the status code that I'm getting? And based on the status code, you know how the product is behaving. Okay. Anything you get with 200, that means it's good. That means you did a valid request. The server sent you back a valid response. Everything is good. Okay. Okay. There are other types, which are 300 types. Okay. Now 300 is little rare, but it does happen once in a while. Okay. So let's say that you're requesting for some website, and the website has moved from one page to another page. Okay. So let's say you request for ebay.com.uk, okay, or co.uk or something like that. Okay. Let's say that co.uk became co.gb. GB is Great Britain or whatever. Okay. So they want to redirect. You requested for one page, and they're going to send you to another page. Okay. So that is what this 300 status code is, 308. Okay. So you can see 308, 307 is a redirect. You are requesting for one page, they're going to send you to another page. So those are all like 300 status code. I mean, it's not an error really, but it is telling the browser that next time, don't request for this, but request for something else. Okay. So that is what 300 status code is. Okay. There are other status codes. We don't have to worry about that. But yeah, these are the primary status codes. Anything 200, good. 300, redirect. 400, client error. 500, server error. Okay. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. So if no questions, then I'm gonna talk about a module. Now you guys know what a module is. So I'm gonna talk about this requests module. Okay. So okay. So let's go into the coding part actually. Yep. Okay. So I'm gonna create a new file. I'm gonna say test underscore ebay.com. Okay. Sorry, test underscore ebay.py. Okay. So I'm going to import the requests library. Okay. So here you can see PyCharm doesn't know what a request library is. Okay. So go to file, import settings. Sorry, not import settings, settings repository, or settings actually. Okay. Go to that and say package project interpreter. Okay. Yep. So search for project interpreter in your PyCharm settings. Yeah, let me do that one more time. So go to file, settings. So when you click on the settings, search for project interpreter. Okay. And when you see that, there's a small plus icon in the very in the pop-up. Click on that plus. Okay, you see a plus here. So click on that plus. It will open up another pop-up. That pop-up is available packages. Okay. Hopefully you guys can read the font here. I'm going to search for requests. Okay. You're going to see that requests here. Okay. Select that. And in the bottom, you're going to see an install package. Okay. I'm going to click on this install package. So what PyCharm is doing is initially I did not have requests library, requests module, and I'm installing that requests right now. Okay. So I clicked on install package. And you can see here it's installing package requests. Okay. And I'm going to close this. Okay. Or you can see it says package requests added successfully, installed successfully. Okay. Okay. I'm going to close this now. And I'm going to see that request library here also in this list of packages. You can see request is here, right here. So I just installed the request library, which wasn't there before. Okay, I'm going to say okay. I'm going to go here. This should actually go away. Okay, it's gone now. Okay, so it used to be a red underline. The red underline means that PyCharm doesn't know what requests means. But now I don't see a red underline. Okay, that means it's good. PyCharm knows what request is. Okay, that's how you will install packages when you need it. Okay, anybody stuck on this PyCharm thing, or are you guys able to install this properly? Okay, I can't see project interpreter in settings. Oh, so if you go to settings, open or expand this project, or search for that. Just search for project interpreter. Are you on a Mac or Windows? Windows, okay. Windows should be same actually. Yeah. So when you search for project interpreter, you will see this. So you don't see project interpreter at all? Interesting. Maybe I have a different version of PyCharm. You have a different version of PyCharm. Maybe it's possible. So I have 2019 actually. This is an older version. Let me do one thing. Okay, let me just update and restart. Just give it 1 second. But anyways, I don't know. Okay. Let me see actually. Oh, there's a Python interpreter, not project interpreter. I guess in the latest version, it says Python interpreter. So click on or search for Python interpreter. Okay, cool. Okay, looks like it's going to take some time. Okay, it's pretty much there. So yeah, I want everyone to install a request library because we're going to make a request to ebay.com. We're going to get the web page. I'm going to show you how to make a HTTP GET request, and I'm going to show you what is the status code and all that. It's going to be interesting. Okay. So I guess in the latest version, if you go to settings and if you search, oh, it still says project interpreter for me, but I guess Python interpreter is what may be showing up for some people there. Okay. Okay, fine. Yeah, so look for Python interpreter or project interpreter. One of them should take you there. Okay. Okay. All right. So once you install the request library, we're gonna say import requests, which is similar to what we did there, right? We say import test tutorial and all that, right? So we did this import test tutorial. That means we are importing some code that's already existing from some location somewhere. Okay. And here we imported request library. That means somebody has written the code. So somebody has written a request library and they made it easy for us so that we can call their functions. Okay. So I have request library here. I'm going to say request.get. Okay. Now you know what a get request is, right? Get means it can get a resource without modifying. I'm not modifying anything. I'm just saying request.get. And look at the beauty of PyCharm. It's actually showing me all the parameters for that function. The first parameter is a URL. Okay. I'm not sure if you guys can read it, but PyCharm is telling me the first parameter is a URL. Okay. So I'm going to say www.ebay.com. That's it. Guess what I'm going to get back? A response. Okay. That's it. One line, and I can get the whole web page. That is the power of Python. Okay. In the sense, if I have to do the same thing in Java, C or C++, .NET, anything, I have to write probably 20 lines of code just to do this, what Python is doing in one line. Okay. So here what we are doing is we are making a GET request to ebay.com and we are getting a response, and I'm going to do print response. Okay. Let's see what the response is. Okay. Oh, I got an error. So let's see. So it says invalid URL. Okay. Now the request library is very strict. Okay. So if you give it a URL, it has to be exact URL. Okay. So if I go to browser and if I say ebay.com, the browser takes it, right? In the sense, somehow browser works, request library doesn't work. That's not true, because what Google Chrome is doing is when I put ebay.com, it's actually going to, come on, https ://www.ebay.com. Okay, so it's actually going to that URL. So we have to put the same thing here also. Okay, so that is the exact URL. Request library wants you to provide exact URL. It is not going to change, or it's not going to assume something. If you give it a URL, it's going to go to that URL. Okay, so here I'm going to say https : ://www.ebay.com. Okay, and then we got a response. We're printing it. Okay, sorry. Yeah, you can see there's a response at the bottom. It says 200. Now you guys know what a 200 means, right? 200 means success, right? If I go back here, okay, anything starting with 200 is a success status code, right? So we got a success. That means we got a web page. Now where is the web page? I don't see in the PyCharm. I just got a response saying 200. Okay, so by default this response prints the status code. If I want the text, okay, I can say print response.text. So this response object has everything inside that object. Okay, by default when I print it, it only prints the status code. But if I want to print the text, the body of the response, I have to say response.text. Okay, now that's going to show me the entire web page, or whatever the response body is. Okay, there you go. At the bottom you can see I got a HTML, CSS, JavaScript page. Okay, so this is the same page that I was showing you before in the browser. Okay, now you might be thinking, okay, now I got a page. What do we do now, right? I mean, I'm just showing you from a tester point of view that how to automate that. In the sense, you're not going to go to a browser, manually type ebay.com, but you're going to request for that page, ebay.com. You're going to get a response. Okay. Now, in the response, maybe you want to verify the title. The title of the page here says electronics, cars, fashion, and all that, right? So you can see, let me show that. Yeah. You can see it shows a small thing there, which is electronics cars. So let's say your job is to test that. It shows that text there, electronics, cars, and fashion, and all that. Okay, so your job is to test it. There are two ways. Manually, you can open the page and go verify that, or you can write this simple program here, which is a Python program, which gets a page and looks for that content. Okay, yeah, look for this content, right? So I'm gonna, okay, so I just highlighted that. Or another automation way is that you request for the page and you make sure that the title has this thing, electronics, cars, and so on. And what you do is this. If, okay, since you got a web page, parsing from the web page is going to be something that we're going to talk later. But right now, all I'm going to do is this. If not in response.text, okay. So I'm saying that if this text, electronics, cars, fashion, collectibles, is not in that response.text, that means I don't see that. Then I'm going to print it saying, hey, web page is not working as expected. Okay. This is one of the simple test cases. Okay. Your job is to make sure that it's going to show that text. If it doesn't show the text, that means that's it. You're going to raise a Jira ticket to the developer saying that, hey, this is not working as expected. I want you to go fix it. And that Jira ticket, the developer is going to get it. He has to work on fixing it, and then he's going to mark the ticket as resolved, fixed, or whatever it is. Okay. So now all the things are coming into picture in the sense once you find an issue, you're going to create a Jira ticket. You're going to create a Jira ticket saying that what is the description? What is the short description? Web page not working as expected. What is a long description? Long description. I don't see this text. I expect this text to be there. And this is my test case. And maybe you can leave some comments, or maybe the other person can leave some comments saying it was working yesterday. Sorry, my bad, or whatever. He can post some comments, and then you can comment and comments and all that. Okay, so the Jira ticket is going to keep track of who is fixing that bug and all that. Okay, who is a reporter, who is it assigned to, who is watching the ticket and all that. Okay, so yeah, but your test case at a high level is going to look 5 lines, or in this case, these are 2 print statements, but pretty much going to look like these 5 lines. You're going to import a request library. You're going to request for the page, and then you're going to look for the contents inside the page. Okay. So the web page should have this sign-in option. Okay. So you can see a small sign-in option here on the top left here, sign in, right? So you can also look for that sign-in option here also. Okay. So the web page should have oh sorry. Oh, sorry. Okay. So we're gonna also look for sign-in page. Okay. Since it's the first time I'm loading a eBay.com, this is the first time I'm loading eBay.com, right? I should see a sign-in page. If I don't see a sign-in page, that's an issue. Okay. That's what the tester's job is, to make sure the page is working as expected. Okay. So that's another test case. And if you don't see that, you're going to print this and so on. Okay. So when I run that, I'm printing the text. I'm going to hide this text for now. Okay. So I don't see anything coming out here. That means everything is working fine. If I see any of this, web page title not working as expected, sign in not shown, and so on, that means I know that my test case has failed. That means there's a bug in the code, and I'm going to create a Jira. The more bugs you find, the better tester you are. Okay. If you find more bugs, that means you are the best tester. Okay. If you don't find any bugs, maybe people will think that you're not even testing it. Okay. So if you find any bugs, just raise the ticket, or raise it with your team lead or a manager. Tell them that you see this issue. Is it really an issue? Is it not an issue? And so on. But yeah, that is what a testing automation looks like. Okay. So this is a very simple example. I can talk more in the next sessions. What are the other things that you can test and all that. So we went over time. I'm going to stop here. If you guys have any questions, you can ask me now. Yes, there are some recordings of previous sessions. It's a good thing that you asked. So every time I record the session and I post it on the YouTube, so let me actually look it up. Give me 1 second. I'm looking up that channel. Give me 1 second. Or if one of the previous guys, if you have the link, post it on the chat. I'm trying to look it up. Okay, it's not here. Okay, 1 second. Okay, I found it. 1 second. Okay. All right. So that is the channel, and there are like 2 or 3 videos of the previous sessions. I think there is 1 or 2 I forgot to upload. I'm going to upload today along with today's session, and you guys can go back and look at those. Okay. Or you can even subscribe there, so you get every time I upload, you get a notification and all that. Okay. Okay. So that is one thing. Now here is a small assignment. Okay. So first, make sure your environment is set up. Okay. Second, when I say environment, I mean Python is installed, PyCharm. I guess that's it. Python and PyCharm should be fine. Okay, and here is an actual assignment, which is load amazon.com. look for a product. Okay. When I say look for a product, I mean search for a product. Search for any product. Okay. Get the price will be too much for now. Okay. Okay. Now when you search, you are actually doing a post request. Okay. That's fine actually. Yeah, that's fine. Keep it there. Yeah. So I'm going to leave it there. But yeah. So I'm going to show you an example here. If I go to google.com, I'm in the website google.com, and I'm going to search for, let's say, 6com. Okay. And I'm going to hit enter. So you can see that on the top in the URL, oh, sorry. Yeah, in the URL, you're going to see, I'm not sure if you guys can see, but I highlighted it. It says google.com/search question mark q equal to 6.com. Okay. Q here is a query. Query means it's trying to look that information up. What follows after this doesn't matter actually. So I can even remove the whole thing. Okay. And I'm just going to say search q equal to 6.com. Okay. 6com. Okay. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. Yeah, I would say this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you know what? No, leave it. So load amazon.com, search for any product. Okay. So when you look up in google.com, search, this is what it shows up. Search q equal to 6.com. Okay. If I hit enter, the same results show up. Okay. Similarly, if I go to amazon.com or let's say ebay.com, Amazon, I want you to figure out. So I'm just going to show up for eBay. Okay. I'm going to search for iPhone and I'm going to hit enter. And you can see there are a bunch of parameters here. Okay. It says certain tracking information. We don't care about that. And there's a KW equal to iPhone. KW is keyword. Okay. New keyword or whatever it is. So if I say change that keyword, okay, iPhone 12, or is there iPhone 12? Okay, I'm gonna search for that. Okay, so there is a, see, it searched for iPhone 12. I just went to the URL. I manipulated the URL. I didn't actually search for that, but I entered a different keyword there, and that actually searched for this iPhone 12. Okay, so similarly, Amazon also, you would have a URL. The URL will have some word there. Okay, so here Google has q equal to 6com. Okay, eBay has underscore nkw equal to iPhone 12. Okay, Amazon will have something else. Okay, so I want you to figure out what that something else is and do a request for that. Okay, search for any product. By using the appropriate URL. Okay, and then 4, print the web page. Okay, 5, print the response status code. Come on, web page. Okay, and then 5. Yep. Check how long it took for the search. Okay. Now this is something I haven't told you guys. How do you measure how long it takes? But that's something you can easily Google search and figure out. In the sense, if I call this function request.get, I can do something before, like get me the time, and get me the time here. So I have a start time. By the way, this is not a real function. There is a Python function that can get you a time. Okay, and there can be end time. And then you can print time took to get the page. Okay, and then you can say end time minus start time. Okay, so that is fine in the sense Python knows how to do string manipulate. Sorry, date time manipulation, time manipulation. So if you subtract one time from another time, it will give you exactly how many seconds, milliseconds, and all that. Okay. So your job is to figure out what is this function, get time. You can do Google search and do that. But you have to print how much time how long did it take to load that web page. Okay. And this is a bonus thing. Do this inside a loop and find the max and min times. Okay. So do this inside a loop of 10 times or 100 times, whatever you want to do, and find the maximum time and the minimum time it took to load the page. Okay. So I'm going to paste this in the chat here. So try to copy that, whatever is in the chat right now, because once I close the session, you may not be able to see that chat there. All right, any questions so far? Okay, guys, submit the assignment, in the sense, send me the solution, but I'm also going to give you my email. So send it to that email address. Last time I saw only one person submit that assignment. I want every one of you to submit that. All right, I'm going to stop here. But that's in a nutshell what the testing job will look like. It's a Python will make it much easier to load the web pages, to manipulate the web pages, and so on. In the next session, we're going to see how you can take certain actions, like how to sign in, how to do a post request, and all that. But for now, just we'll start with here. Okay. All right, guys. So if no questions, I'm going to stop here, and you guys enjoy your weekend. Thank you, guys. Take care. Bye.